Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business today with Stacy Yanchuk Oleksy. See, I knew I was going to say it wrong. CEO of Money Mentors. Thanks for joining us, Stacy.
Oh, it's truly my pleasure, Mario. I just go by Stacy, right? Because Yanchuk and Oleksy are just too hard to pronounce.
All right, I'm going to chat with you today about a survey that Money Mentors has put out on love and money. And no big surprise, I guess, that finances are always the biggest stressor, right, in relationships. What does this survey find?
It found exactly that couples fight about money. Over 50% of couples are having fights about money, which is to be expected. But what we also noticed is that those fights translate into feeling, how individuals feel as well. We noticed that some people were less productive at work, were accounting for more, higher levels of anxiety and depression. And I'm not talking clinical, I'm just talking feeling anxious and depressed. Having a good money fight really does impact Canadians, at home, also in the workplace as well.
So, what is this whole issue with money? Obviously, as I said, it's decades and probably since a big
Mhm.
time
Right?
since money came into
Mhm.
play. But has it gotten worse over the last few years, especially as the challenges continue to grow out there with cost of living and all that type of stuff happening?
I think it actually has gotten more challenging. First of all, being in a relationship is just not easy, right? Because you're trying to form a life with a very different human being who's not the same. And then you throw money into it because money's just never about the dollars and cents, Mario. It is about my history with my money. How was I raised with money and how was my person raised? What are my values? Those are not the same as my husband's, for example, right? So I think it is more complicated. And then we've just gone through COVID, which put a lot of economic pressure on many Canadians.
Mm.
So if it's putting pressure on Canadians, it's putting pressure in the relationship as well. And
Yeah.
then the cost of living. I mean, my goodness, a bag of apples is $11. It's not covered in chocolate. It's just apples, right?
Yeah.
So inevitably couples are going to fight about the day-to-day expenses as well.
Yeah. So when we have the stress, like I guess, what is the impact on people, like on an emotional and a mental level first? What's the impact on it?
Pretty significant, actually. Now, and I'm not talking just the data, but if anybody's in a relationship and think about your last money fight, I didn't walk away from that one feeling really good, right? I felt more anxious, I felt sadder, more depressed. Now we're stressed. So it has some pretty significant impact. It will impact a couple's ability to sleep as well. Right? A good money fight doesn't mean you go to bed and everything's great. Often, I joke that one of the first money fights my husband and I ever had, he went to bed and I stewed about it and I started to plan out a divorce. And he woke up the next morning and he's like, "Hey, babe." And I'm like, "Brr." Well, he's like, "I just needed a nap." And I'm like, "Oh, I was planning our divorce." Right. So, it stresses people out and it's hard on relationships. What we also notice is people are less patient with their loved ones. So, impacts the kids.
Yeah.
There's a lot of impact. And it just doesn't feel very good.
But beyond that, like
Mhm.
it goes like I don't know. I know I've talked to a number of people, over the last little while about there just seems to be more anger out there.
Oh, yes.
Whether it's in a car and road rage or whether
Mhm.
it's in a line for something. Is this does that the stress of money, is that what does to people?
Well, I
That
think, yeah, I think it does. But I think, what, anger is a guardian, right, to the deeper feelings of feeling hurt, scared, or powerless. And so when people are feeling afraid about their money, or they feel powerless in a relationship, or about their money, or their debts, right, it's harder to admit that I feel powerless, or I feel hurt, or I'm scared. It's much easier to just display anger. And
yeah,
so I think we've got a lot of folks that are feeling financially insecure, and that makes everyone just a little more, scritchled, as we like to say in our home, right? A little persnickety.
yeah.
Um, and it shows up everywhere. So it has tremendous impact, Mario.
So what do people have to do?
Oh my goodness, That's the million dollar question.
Yeah.
I think, the first thing I think we need to do is breathe, and I know that sounds silly, but when I'm upset, when I'm fighting with my husband, I start to breathe in my throat, right? I pant like a dog. So now
Mm,
I'm not getting enough oxygen to my head and I'm not thinking properly. So kind of settling our bodies and just breathing for a couple minutes, I think is a good idea. I think it's also good to recognize that my partner, my husband, in my example, is not out to get me. We're actually on the same team. And he's doing the best that he can. Even I don't think, if I don't think so, I have to have faith that he's actually doing the best that he can. And I would want that him to have the same faith in me that I'm doing the best that I can.
mhm.
And then it's about getting curious, right? Because as soon as there's blame and shame, everyone starts to, then you get into fight and flight responses, right? Someone either wants to book it, divorce, right? I don't want to do this anymore, or they come in for the big fight.
Yeah.
Or we can settle down and actually have a conversation about, like, I'm curious when, or I'm curious about, and then sometimes we just need help.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's, having a referee in the middle to go, you're not wrong and you're not wrong. Together, you're both making sense, but now we got to figure it out together. And that's where we recommend, a nonprofit credit counselor, like what we have here at Money Mentors.
Okay. And we've talked about a lot of the financial pressures that people
Hmm.
are facing and
Hmm.
cost of living and all that. And and you see sometimes almost on a weekly basis what is it, the one paycheck away from
You bet. Hmm.
not having enough money to do
Yeah,
pay rent or whatever.
that's right.
Um, so, if in this time, like, what do people have to do to get themselves on track, I guess, or back
Hmm.
on track, maybe if they're
Hmm.
in trouble?
Yeah, getting on track can be challenging, right? I think you have to do an assessment of kind of what's the state of the union in the relationship and the money, right? And that's where you're looking at the numbers. What's the actual numbers coming? What's the money coming in? Real numbers. What's going out? And when I say real numbers, I'm making a point here is that one of the best things to do, but I'm telling you, Mario, it is the most boring solution in like God's green acre. It's writing down your expenses, literally writing down everything that you spend.
Yeah.
And I encourage couples to consider a 4-week tracking challenge, right? Just challenge yourself. There's no judgment, no shame. Just write it. If you spend over 10 cents, you got to write it down. Once you have an idea of where your money's actually going, then you can have a real conversation about what to do about it.
Yeah.
Because there's only a finite amount of options available to consumer, right? They can either do it yourself and figure it out that way. They can go insolvency route, or they can come to us and we can help folks in the middle. Right.
Hmm.
So there's not that many options available. And the numbers will dictate what's best, but it's understanding what the truth is, right? Not just what's in my head.
Yeah. I'm curious on your perspective on this. And, you obviously, through your organization, have seen a lot of people, a
Mhm.
lot of money issues, etc. Should we start talking about this and teaching this at a younger age to people?
Oh my goodness, yes. We should be talking to children like the littles at home and, playing with money and touching money and paying for things, etc., right? And then as they start to get into school, absolutely. Because money is not about money, it is your relationship to money. But you have to understand dollars and cents and math, and then you have to understand needs versus wants. Because it's interesting, some of the research is showing that kids with good impulse control are better with their money irrespective of financial education, right? So helping kids understand that you don't get to have everything right all the same at the same time, right? You can have it all, you just don't get it all at the same time.
Yeah.
So prioritizing getting them, those are really big life skills. Because imagine if you and I had been taught that growing up. I mean, I'd be a kabillionaire by now. No, I'm
Yes.
joking. But we just don't talk about it in school
Oh,
or
yeah.
money. So yes, it should be part of the curriculum. But the key is because we've taught financial education in the schools, the key, Mario, is teaching the teachers how to manage their own money and then how to teach managing money. Because when
Mm,
you have someone parachuting in just to do a 1 hour class with kids, it's just not enough, right? We need it completely embedded in everything.
yeah.
Because I'd rather learn about, how to pay my bills than what is it, Pythagoras' theorem, right? It's more important to figure out how to do my taxes, than algebra. And, not to say that algebra is
Yeah.
bad. I mean, we all love math, but, we need to teach kids some basic life skills.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about money mentors.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So Money Mentors is a nonprofit credit counseling agency. We've been around since 1997 and we provide three core services. So, Mario, we provide free financial counseling to any Albertan who reaches out to us. So long as they are 18 and they are alive, they can give us a call and they can ask us any question they want about money, and we're going to do our best to answer them. And if we don't have the answers, we'll get them where they need to go. We also offer free financial education. So we'll go into organizations, we'll do workshops and webinars in the community to teach people about money. And then we also administer the Orderly Payment of Debt program. And so that's a legislated program. It's a federally backed program that where we can consolidate all unsecured tax and student loan debt into one monthly payment at 5%. It gives Albertans creditor protection, and it also gives them a mechanism to get out of debt in a reasonable amount of time.
Hmm.
And so that's what we do.
Okay.
Mhm.
And how long have you been doing this?
You know what? I've only been here I think it's 11, oh no, it's 13 months. I just got here last January.
Okay.
Yes, I was the CEO of the National Association Credit Counseling Canada prior to that.
Okay. Well, then
Mhm.
I can still ask you the same question
Of
I was
course,
going to ask
yes.
you, but in your experience over the
Mhm.
time and in this whole field,
Mhm.
is this the worst that it's been like for people in terms of finances and debt and all that type of stuff?
It's certainly not great. I mean, pre-COVID, we were the highest indebted nation in the G7. Well, post-COVID, so we're still there. Like we've got top spot. So Canadians have a lot of unsecured debt, which impacts their ability, right? For every dollar that I'm paying into debt, it means that it's not a dollar into my retirement, into my savings, or fund money. So yeah, there's impact. And I think COVID did a number on consumers, right? Some people did made off like bandits and they did great,
Yeah, yeah.
which, I'm happy for them. There were a lot of other folks that really struggled during COVID financially and otherwise, right? Job loss, health, obviously. There were at times people lost spouses, et cetera, right? So we're living with, I think, some PTSD, from COVID and the financial repercussions of that. And then we had inflation. I mean,
Yeah.
high inflation, right? So I don't think Canadians don't have an easy time. And then we've got the threats from the South, right, with tariffs, et cetera, that are making people quite anxious. And when you're anxious, when I'm anxious, I don't typically make great decisions, right? So,
That's
there's a lot of anxiety in Canada right now.
okay. Wonderful.
Mhm.
Well, it's not wonderful,
No,
but
I got-
wonderful for your time, Stacy. Appreciate it.
truly my pleasure, Mario. Thank you for having me.
All right, that was Stacy Yanchuk Oleksy, who is CEO of Money Mentors. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast. Thanks for joining us today.